Seamus Bruner, who is the director of research for the Government Accountability Institute, who just recently attended that independent journalist meeting with President Trump. He joins me on the Middleton Ford hotline. It's great to have you on the show, Seamus. Thank you for joining me again.
Hey, Vicki, it is great to be with you.
I want to first recommend your book. This, I believe, is your latest book called Controligarchs. There is also a very long subtitle to that book, but just Controligarchs. Get this book. My husband and I consumed it in a weekend, and we were, ready to put our fists through plaster. So everyone should read this. This is, tracking the billionaire network and what they use their dollars for global control, essentially, if they can have it. So I want to play some audio for you, Seamus, if you don't mind. It's short. It's 30 seconds, and we'll cut it off if it's too painful. And I want to get your reaction, especially given what you went to the White House to talk to President Trump about. So here's the audio.
You understand, there's no Antifa. This is an entirely imaginary organization. There is not an Antifa. This is no different than if they announced they rounded up a dozen Decepticons. We've captured the Chupacabra, everyone. And then it was Trump's turn to ratchet up the rhetoric with fiery images conjured from no one has any idea where.
One thing I have to say is that Washington, D.C. was almost as bad. I don't know what could be worse than Portland. You
understand?
Wow. So I want your hot take on that one first, because that just happened last night.
Yeah, well, Jimmy Kimmel is part of the what we would call the protest industrial complex, or Riot Inc. And when I talked to President Trump just a couple of days ago, I said Riot Inc. is like any other corporation. It has a lot of divisions. It has a PR division that is running cover for all of the chaos and unrest that is undeniable. And thanks to the many brave journalists who were in the room with us, they all of the violence and the destruction. And so Jimmy Kimmel's just playing his part. The other divisions of Riot Inc. And so it's not just the boots on the ground, like the Antifa foot soldiers. You've also got a very well-funded legal division that gets these rioters out of jail as quickly as possible to get them back onto the street. So it is so much bigger than just Antifa. The problem it is, but it starts with the fountainhead, the NGOs that are funding it all.
So Antifa, you can actually, they have a flag. You can go to their various different organizations. They're a cell-based organization, and they are funded. You can make donations to them either through their legal defense funds or other mechanisms. Who funds these groups?
It's so many that, by the time I got back from Washington, D.C. back home, our research team had already found another $10 million. So what I said on Wednesday, there's over $100 million going to Riot Inc., the entire ecosystem of unrest. We've just really keyed in on, of course, George Soros and his Open Society network of nonprofit, so-called nonprofit entities. You've also got the Tide network, the Tide funding network, which has the Tide Center, the Tide Foundation, Tide's Advocacy. You've got the Arabella funding network, which has at least 7 funds, New Venture Fund, the Hopewell Fund, the 1630 Fund, the Windward Fund, and these all receive hundreds of millions of dollars, billions. I think we have $16 billion flowing into these things. That comes from the people directly. George Soros, Bill Gates is a major financier of this. I mentioned actually a foreign billionaire named Hans-Jörg Wyss from Switzerland. He's a radical who's influencing our political process and funding this chaos. And even taxpayers, you and me, we're funding this because outfits like the Tide funding network and the Soros funding network, they receive, we've calculated, well over $100 million. And just think about that, $100 million of your and my money that goes into the big national NGOs, which then filter it down to all the way to the foot soldiers, the people committing the chaos. So we're talking about huge sums of money coming from billionaires. Another foreign billionaire or almost billionaire that we mentioned at the White House was Neville Roy Singham, who is based in China. He funds things like the People's Forum in New York, which was behind a lot of the pro-Hamas protests a couple of years ago in October. And he also funds Code Pink, which is one of these radical groups. They were most recently, they got up in the face of President Trump when he was trying to have dinner with some of his cabinet, and they just got into his face. They're part of this action network of sowing chaos and unrest. So it is a huge, huge problem. That was the message I was trying to convey at the White House is, yes, Antifa is the most visible, visceral, violent outfit here, but there's a whole ecosystem that enables Antifa and groups like it.
Okay. And so they are the black shirts. They're the masked black shirts that are out there attacking military aircraft. That's a new announcement that Andy Ngo had reported on. Incidentally, to say it's fake, Andy Ngo, who got concussed to the point where he, may have never even regained full function. Katie Davenport, who was beaten with a pole while she was just simply trying to film the non-existent riots in Portland, according to Jimmy Kimmel. Or it was somebody like Nick Sorter, who was shoved and then punched and then arrested by the police department in Portland, who have been fully infiltrated, I think, at this point by Antifa, an organization that Jimmy Kimmel says doesn't exist. Glenn Beck did a nice job taking your report from the Government Accountability Institute and blackboarding it like he does so well. So, he boiled it down to Tides Foundation, Alliance for Global Justice, Open Society Foundation, Fidelity Investments, and the Schwab Charitable Fund. Fidelity Investments, you say? That kind of surprises me because they're also involved in managing how many billions or trillions of dollars in 401k investments.
Yeah, no, that was an amazing special by Glenn Beck. He has been on this story for a very long time, so I applaud all the great work he has done. The Fidelity is a dark money pass-through in which people can anonymize their donations. So, that if you've got a Fidelity account, you can choose something to give money to, and that is a good way to hide that you are the actual giver, and Fidelity will give it on your behalf. So, yes, wow. They are in on it. And what is really great, what was great to see Wednesday, and really ever since President Trump began tweeting about George Soros should be looked at using a RICO lens, which I completely agree with, and the rest of these financiers should as well, because and then when he labeled Antifa as a domestic terror organization, these are both just and the left wing, by the way, they really mastered this strategy. I mean, they did it in a really unethical way for lawfare, but there's an outfit called the Brennan Justice Center.
Yes.
It's a very left-wing organization, and they, during Biden's tenure, put out all these resources for how Joe Biden could use domestic terrorism as a way to go after conservatives, just generally conservatives. If you're a climate denier, if you're a vax denier, anti-vax, you could be a domestic terrorist. But what was interesting about their legal theory here is when you use that statute, what it does is you may not end up charging all of these people with terrorism. And I would say we are huge First Amendment right supporters and the right to peacefully assemble. But what it does is it gives law enforcement the tools to investigate and to find other crimes. And so most of the people here are going to be arrested under the violence they're committing. I mean, you can't be bashing people in the face with a metal pole, and you can't be assaulting law enforcement officers, and you can't be setting fire to buildings. So you'll usually get, but what it does is it gives the federal government the tools to make arrests for these types of things and to investigate. And when you get the feds arresting these violent criminals, then you basically neutralize, or to an extent, the legal division of Riot Inc. and also the politicians and the prosecutors in cities like Portland and Chicago who want to get these rioters back on the streets as quickly as possible. And once they're locked up on federal charges, much harder to get them out and back to the causing the chaos and unrest.
Yeah, these same groups we're talking about, Arabella, funneling money from Open Society or Tides Foundation, or Hans-Jörg Wyss or whoever, they're still, I mean, they've fanned out so drastically. A lot of the DOJ USAID investigations exposed a lot of what they were doing in other realms, but this is the nihilism. This is the chaos. This is the revolution part. This is the boots on the ground revolution. You mentioned that Open Society and Tides Foundation, et cetera, they've gotten $100 million that you have tracked. And that is in taxpayer money, right? That's what you're talking about. What have they gotten in the ability to declare themselves nonprofits? How much tax liability have they evaded because they are nonprofits?
Well, so I mean, every donation, it provides a tax incentive to the donor when they're a nonprofit, and that's a key tool in the toolbox as well. Is the IRS is going to be able to. You can't use a nonprofit to fund illicit and criminal activity. That's grounds for having your tax exempt status immediately revoked. And if you take away the tax exempt status, then you take away the major incentive for someone like a George Soros or a Bill Gates or a Reid Hoffman or any of these other radical left financiers. You take away the incentive to give. The whole reason that they use this sort of, it's not a loophole, but the whole reason they do this is to eliminate their tax liabilities. And so if they have to give it with no incentive, that entity will dry up.
Yes. So we're talking about people who are making significant contributions through these various nonprofits and have no tax liability on that at all. And so to your point, it becomes an enormously expensive venture. Those nonprofits themselves then become potentially under investigation as well. So there's a way to get at this. I think we are at desperation point for the left when they are trying to essentially Baghdad Bob everybody and say, what are you talking about, Riot? What are you talking about, reporters getting beaten up? We haven't seen anything. My favorite moment, and I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Nick Sorter. Maybe it was somebody else who said, I don't see any of you people there. You're never there. I don't see any of you media people there. So what are you talking about? But you get a sense that Trump is very serious about this, correct, Seamus?
Yeah, absolutely. I spoke with Attorney General Bondi. He directed.
Okay, we just lost him. Well, it's at the end of the segment. So let me just send everybody to two places. Number one, Seamus's book, Seamus Bruner.
You already see them running scared Antifa.
Okay, good.
They have fled the country in many cases. The author of that book that was Keith Ellison from Minnesota was holding up about fascists and Antifa, the Antifa handbook. That author has fled the country. So they're taking it very seriously because the administration is taking it very seriously.
Thank you for joining me on the program. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Vicki.
Good to have you, Seamus Bruner. And again, his book is Controligarchs. So I'm going to send you to that book, Controligarchs. Find it. It's easy to find. It's the only book named Controligarchs by Seamus Bruner.